Honorable Men Discord. Errol Spence Jr. talks returning to the ring. Let's talk about it.
How you see yourself is how you perceived. I see a man strong, gifted, head strapping, never down on his knees, begging. Gotta make a way, even in my darkest hour. Say the odds against me was new. I would never cower.
As always, welcome back to another episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let's get straight to it. I'm going to be honest with you. This is not something I ever wanted to hear. And I'll tell you why. Why? Because when Errol Spence Jr. fought Terrence Bud Crawford, he got the brakes beaten off of him down to the rotors. Okay? And I actually think Errol Spence Jr. is a good boxer. All right? So even though I'm being comical and stuff like that, I really do think Errol Spence Jr. is a good boxer. It's just that there's going to be points in time in your career, it doesn't matter what type of sport you're in, where you're going to meet someone who's just, they like dropped from the heavens. You know, that special person that just, no matter how good you are, they're great. You know, and it's funny, in this rollout for the Canelo Crawford fight, one thing that Canelo's been telling Bud Crawford is that, yeah, he's a good fighter, but he hasn't fought anyone elite. He's using the word elite to say that he is on another level from Crawford. Interestingly enough, I think Crawford is elite, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. And remember, you heard it here first on Honorable Men Discord. I think Crawford's gonna win that fight against Canelo. But just do me this favor. When Crawford wins that fight, because yes, I'm predicting that Crawford's going to win against Canelo, I need everyone who doubted Crawford to come to my channel and hit the subscribe button. Deal? Got it. Now back to Spencer. When Spencer got he got the beating of a lifetime. All right? And let me say this. By no means did I think Spencer wasn't giving it his all. He looked like he came there to be aggressive. As a matter of fact, the entire fight, if you watch that fight over, Spencer came out ready to dominate. He came with a plan, but the plan does not work against someone who is just able to adjust, focused, and willing to sit back and see what you got before they go and execute. And I believe Crawford went in there unfazed about the fact that he was the B-side, unfazed about the fact that, Spencer has the money behind him. Spencer had the custom outfit for his corner. If you don't remember that fight, go look at that fight. Spencer came in flashy. Bud came in simple, standard, I would say. He came in standard, like a standard boxer outfit. Didn't do anything too flashy, to my knowledge, but Spencer was the opposite. Spencer, especially when you're talking about the press conferences leading up to the fight, Spencer and his camp were talking about they're the big fish, in the waters. They, making all types of analogy to them being the bigger fish in the pond. And look at how that turned out. And then if you remember how Spencer's face looked after the fight, I'm pretty sure he was embarrassed, all the way embarrassed. And I'm going to tell you one thing, for those of you who look at boxing. I remember when Crawford finagled his way to get that fight. Crawford had, after one of Spencer's fights, or maybe Spencer was at someone's fight, I believe, Crawford met him backstage, and it was filmed. This is filmed. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. And Crawford basically, did what like rappers do when they're trying to get a deal. Crawford just kept asking, let's get it on, let's get it in, let's fight, let's set up a fight. And you could tell Spence wasn't trying to entertain it for whatever reason. I'm not gonna say Spence was scared of Crawford, but maybe he came from a place of like, I'm top dog, I'm not just gonna give you a fight because you want to fight. So he was trying to like not commit, but eventually he committed, and I salute Spence for this. Not only did he commit, but he actually made the fight happen. Where am I going with all of this? I did not want to see this guy return. And the $1,000,000 question that I want some of you to answer for me in the comments is, at what point does a person tell themselves, yeah, maybe I should call it quits? And in all honesty, I think it can be perceived as a question that is a case-by-case scenario, because it really depends on why you may consider calling it quits. Now, here's why I would consider quitting if I was Spencer. Spencer survived a extremely brutal accident. Extremely brutal. And for those of you that are unaware of the car accident, he was driving in his Ferrari. I almost said Lamborghini. Right? Let's get straight to that right now. This is the news report from the accident that happened approximately 5 years ago, before this recording. So let's watch this, right? And then we're going to talk about it further. This is partially why I think he should finish, his fight career. I'm sure he has money still saved in investments, and if he doesn't, he should start making investments with the money that he does have. But let's get into this car crash. This is the news report courtesy of CBS Texas, and we'll talk about it.
First on the CBS DFW social media channels, a violent crash overnight as a Ferrari flipped on a Dallas street. In that car was Errol Spence Jr. He's the boxing champion from DeSoto. Spence survived the crash, but is in rough shape at a Dallas hospital right now. We have team coverage for you of this story, starting with J.D. Miles, who first obtained that crash video. J.D.?
And Ken, the video of that crash makes it look unsurvivable. We know from police that Errol Spence Jr. had just left Fuel City, driving north on Riverfront Boulevard in his white Ferrari at a high rate of speed when he lost control right here. You can see cars, oncoming traffic before landing on the other side of Riverfront. Video from the security camera at Knockout Sports Bar captured the crash around 2:45 in the morning. You can see the white sports car start flipping and barely miss a light pole as it traveled across lanes into oncoming traffic before landing on the other side of Riverfront Boulevard. Police say Errol Spence Jr. was not wearing a seatbelt and was ejected from the vehicle. Two vehicles can be seen on the video afterward, driving through the wreckage without stopping. Witnesses told police Spence was conscious when he was taken to Methodist Hospital, where he has broken teeth, among other injuries. Just last month, Spence became the undisputed welterweight champion of the world in a fight here in North Texas. Ironically, the wreck happened right outside of a sports bar, which has a mural on the wall dedicated to the boxer and has been one of Spence's longtime sponsors.
We do hold him dear. He comes in here quite often. He shows respect for us, and it's crazy seeing exactly what happened, especially seeing the car flip so many times.
And the big question is whether or not this will derail, threaten, or delay Spence's boxing career. We don't know the answer to that at this point. He has a home in Frisco. We are told his family is around him at his bedside at
All right, so I'll stop it there. So clearly it didn't delay his fight career, because he went on to fight some more, right? And I have over here, so that car accident happened in October of 2019. As you can see, in September 2019, he fought Sean Porter, right? So then pretty much the following month, he had that extremely violent car accident. But he recovered, and then he came back in December of 2020, which is relatively fast when you consider the way that car accident was. Now, here's where I'm going with this. So they said he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. He was ejected from the Ferrari. You saw how that Ferrari was. You saw the velocity and the speed of that Ferrari as it tumbled. It tumbled, right? It wasn't like he crashed into a pole. I don't even know at what point did he eject, but it was going so fast. I'm surprised. I'm extremely surprised that he survives. What he decides to do is he decides, a year later to come back in December of the following year, 20, fight Danny Garcia, which he won that fight, right? He fought the Cuban boxer in 2022. So then now after 2020, for whatever reason, he waited 2 years later, and it might have been because of his eye. He was having eye issues, and I don't know if it was because of the car accident. For those of you who follow Errol Spence Jr., let me know if the eye issues he's been having, and he still has it till this day, if I'm not mistaken. He has problems with his eyes, and he turned around 2 years later, fought Ugas, and he beat Ugas. You know, Ugas wasn't even really a challenge. That fight was, in my opinion, that fight was boring. It was lackluster. I thought Ugas would have had a little bit more to show, but, you know, it just wasn't what I expected that fight to be. The Danny Garcia fight was much better than the Ugas fight. Now, so he took 2 years off after Garcia, fought Ugas, and then a year later he fought Terence Crawford. Now, mind you, that's 3 fights after that major car accident. You know, the Danny Garcia fight was probably taxing on his body because Danny Garcia is a solid boxer. Solid boxer. You know, then to fight Ugas, so let's put it like this. Garcia is a solid boxer, all right? Now, would I say Hall of Famer? I don't know. What do you boxer fans think? You think he's Hall of Famer status? He's definitely that respected in the boxing world, right? Much better than a Ugas, right? So he fought Danny Garcia after a major car accident a year later, which is to me like a top contender. Then you fight Ugas, which is not a top contender. And Ugas is not the type of fight, or in my opinion, that you should be having before you decide to fight Terence Crawford, which is why I could only assume he underestimated Terence Crawford because Terence Crawford was coming from, you know, being on the top rank. And so that's like he's as a boxer on the top rank, it's like you're in another world. You're not in the same division as the other well-known fighters. In any event, Terence Crawford, like I mentioned earlier, beat the brakes off of him. So much to the point where I actually started to feel bad for him. And I wasn't even rooting for him, but I wasn't hating on him either. If he would have won, then it would have been, you know, I always like to go for the underdog. And because I knew Spencer, you know, came with that, the money behind him. And like I said, he had all the custom outfits for his entourage and his camp. And Bud Crawford didn't. I was rooting for Bud Crawford. Was I expecting Bud Crawford to perform the way he did? Absolutely not. That was a surprise to me. I was shocked. I was completely shocked at what I was seeing going on. But in any event, while I was watching it, I started saying to myself, no, that's enough. That's enough. I don't know if any of you agree with me. If you agree with my stance on that, let me know in the comments. But I said to myself, that's enough. I didn't want to see Spencer. I don't want to see any fighter get beat to a pulp unnecessarily. You know, you're in there because you love the sport. I get it. But do you want to be taking headshots? You know, and I don't mean to come across sounding like a softy. But, you know, even in contact sports like football, there's been plenty of movies on how brutal it is for your brain. Your brain was never meant to move around, you know, behind the skull, knocking into the skull and stuff like that. That happens with contact sports like football. Pretty sure there's a degree of that going on in UFC when you're getting kicks in the head and stuff like that. But particularly boxing, when, you know, you're sparring all the time, and just because you put those little pads on your head doesn't mean your brain is not bouncing around inside of your skull. It's just not a good look for you when you're planning on living a long-lasting life. You know, you're after your sport, you know, with your family, your grandchildren, if God willing you make it to that age to have grandchildren. And so where I'm going with this is that I don't think Spencer should return to the ring. I really don't think, unless he has bills or something like that, other obligations that the public doesn't know about. But I don't think he should do it. But let me get into this Errol Spence speaking on the fact that he's coming back to the ring, or would like to come back to the ring.
People on social media say if I come back, I'll be the shell of myself. You know, if he comes back, you know, he's But he probably not gonna come back. He's damaged. I just, use it all as fuel. Some people can use it all and be not motivated and be like, and let that knock them down. I use it as fuel. I use it as motivation. I was undisciplined, doing the wrong things and not living the life I should have lived, and then after the accident, I had to, get right to be right. So and that's what happened. I got right. And it came back. People was like, I think he need to tune up. He's not ready. And I fought the ex-world champion, Danny Garcia, coming back from a car accident. People on social media say, if I come.
Listen, ego and pride could be the killer of man, all right? He's had a great career, and yes, his last fight he lost, right? He lost in an extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Dominating fashion. He was dominated by Crawford's abilities and talent, all right? But that doesn't mean that his legacy, he's going to be remembered as a loser because he lost his last fight. Boxers lose fights. Some boxers lose fights. They're not all going to be like Mayweather or potentially Crawford, even though I think Crawford's going to win the upcoming fight. But not to speak on Crawford, ego and pride. He took time out to the point where I was hoping that he decided to quietly retire. But that's not the case. So when I saw this video, I was immediately just shaking my head like, why is he doing this to himself? And by the way, to add insult to injury, he went into that fight with custom outfits for his entourage in camp, right? His coach at the time, Derek James, had received a Trainer of the Year, 2022's Trainer of the Year by ESPN. And then immediately after the fight, you could tell the body language that he had with his trainer. He, almost like a prima donna, decided to put the blame on the trainer. Now, oddly enough, Derek James had been training him, from what I saw here, since the start of his career. So he was good up until you fought Crawford, and then when you lost to Crawford in the fashion that you lost to Crawford, you decided to fire the guy who the same year received an award for Trainer of the Year. So he was the Trainer of the Year, but he wasn't good enough. It was his fault. Listen, I believe, and I stand on this 10 toes down, Spencer should not get back in the ring. The question I asked earlier about, when should man decide that it's time to wave the flag? That's going to depend on the man, and if the man pays attention to the signs that he receives throughout his lifetime. And I can't speak on other people's experiences and what type of signs they may have seen or overlooked. But trust me when I tell you, as a man in this life, you're going to receive signs, and it's up to you to either take heed to those signs or act as though you didn't see it in the first place. All right? And let me tell you right now, you saw the video I queued up from the news report from 5 years ago. The way that Ferrari tumbled down the street, and then to hear the reporter say that he was ejected from the car, that was sign number one. All right? And as a God-fearing man, I'm going to say this. That was a blessing. Okay? Spencer being able to fight a year after that and fight Ryan Garcia. I'm sorry, I said Ryan Garcia. I'm sorry. And fight gotta go back to it. Danny Garcia, right? Him being able to fight a year after and fight Danny Garcia was a blessing. 2 years later, fight Ugas, a blessing. A year later, fight Crawford, a blessing. And that's still a blessing even though he lost, right? The problem is he survived the car accident, took a brutal beating against Crawford, And now he's talking. All right, so that was, I'm sorry, that was, I got to go back to the tape. I want to be correct. That was 23. So you figure 2 years later, much like the 2 years he took after fighting Garcia, 2 years later here in 2025, which I'm hoping he doesn't fight this year or have plans on fighting this year. But pretty much 2 years later, here he is talking about making a comeback. But the truth is, I'm surprised, but I'm not that surprised, because I believe back when he lost against Crawford, there was speculations about him activating the clause for a rematch, which that was completely absurd. I was 1,000% against that. I don't know about any of you watching this. I was 1,000% like, and I think everybody watching the fight, I don't think there was a body in the arena. I don't care if you came into the arena wearing a Spencer custom jersey. You, by the end of that fight, did not say to yourself, I want to see the rematch. And if you did, you're selfish and you just like seeing someone get hurt, all right? Because you're not in the ring yourself. The beating that he received from Crawford, I did not want to see a rematch. Listen, the commentators themselves were saying there's no need for a rematch. What is there to see? It wasn't like a tight fight where it was like, yeah, we need to run that back. No. It was a brutal beating. But with that being said, that's my thoughts on this. I think Spencer should find another avenue, be a commentator. And I get it. When you're a professional athlete, it burns inside of you. The passion, some of it is just, again, it's the ego, it's the pride. And, when you start mentioning, I think people don't think I can make a comeback. Are you worried about what people are thinking? Or is it because you just genuinely see yourself back in the ring? I don't know. It's just crazy. Men, watch the signs out there. I don't want to ramble on, but pay attention to the signs. Only you all know as individuals whether or not you receive signs. But don't take those signs for granted, because you only get one life, you only get one body. You always have to think about the future as well. I know the here and now, the feeling, your emotions inside, it burns for whatever your passion is. Whatever your passion is. I know we're talking boxing, but whatever your passion is, I know the desire to continue, and sometimes to prove to yourself. Sometimes you might feel worthless because it's like you say to yourself, like, well, what else am I going to do if I'm not doing that which I love? But if that which you love is anything in the combat arena or in the sports arena like football, where you're risking your livelihood as a older man, you have to really consider paying attention to those signs. But that's my thoughts on this. As always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. I drop episodes every day daily at 5 p.m. here on YouTube. Take care.